All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 2000 on a Friday night. I'm sorry. We changed our time slot, didn't we? It's 2000 on a Sunday evening. This is Christopher Lauer with the Brushfire Mind. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. And sorry, sweethearts. 2000 on a Friday night. It's just me tonight. I'm sorry. So yeah, you get just me tonight. And it's like we got somebody just signed on. Hello, viewer. Feel free to join me in the chat over here, but I'm about to start digging in to some of the stuff that's happened this week. Okay. So let's get right into the fallacy of the week. And I want to open this week's fallacy of the week segment, by explaining that I'm just going to have to start doing a fallacy of the week separate from the news. So this week, I'm gonna do one that we visited before, and here's the problem. My intent with this whole fallacy of the week segment always was to point out that whenever the left makes an argument at all, whenever the left offers any sort of argument, that argument is always fallacy. It's always rooted in fallacy. Now, going into this, I knew that most commonly the fallacy would be either the straw man fallacy, moving the goalposts, circular logic, straw man, goalpost, circular logic, and the ad hominem. What hadn't occurred to me is that they're intellectually incapable of even moving over into more complex fallacies. I expected to see more slippery slopes, more substitutions, things like that. Well, this week, we're going to dig into a little bit the logical fallacy of false attribution. Now, just to make sure that we're all on the right page, it is the position of the left that you never, ever, ever blame the victim. That's reasonable. A woman says she was raped. It's not okay to say it was her fault. That's reasonable. If a child reports being molested or abused, it's not their fault. They didn't ask for it. They didn't cause it to happen. Now, with a woman being raped, I will not say that it is the victim's fault. That's ludicrous. She didn't literally ask for it. In all but a very few cases, and I have to throw this caveat, because apparently there's this whole thing now where there are rape fetishists, people who get off on the rape scenario, and the way they do it is the victim will run an ad in Craigslist or something of the sort, literally advertising to be raped. They'll supply details, and that's what they want. They want somebody to come and rape them. They literally a willing victim. And then the ad will be answered by somebody who wants to, I guess, indulge in all of the psychological benefit. I hate to say the word benefits, but just like when you say, taking cocaine, there are benefits. There's whatever the rush is, whatever it is that makes a rapist want to rape. So there's people putting out the ad in Craigslist, and then somebody answers the ad. There was actually a case not too long ago where a woman ran a series of Craigslist ads, and the ads said, this is my address. Here's my description. I'm looking for somebody to engage in the rape fantasy with me. Please approach, enter the house, and proceed no matter how aggressively I protest. That's the ad she ran. And some guy showed up and raped her. Exactly within the parameters of the advertisement. Well, then it turns out that it was convoluted. Let me keep it all in place. Okay, so then the police go to investigate, and it turns out that the girl's husband's ex-wife ran the ad. Yeah, okay, so the police go to investigate, and they find out that the ad was actually run by the girl's husband's ex-wife. So they arrest the ex-wife, lock her up. Further investigation reveals that the woman that was raped, whose information was in the ad, she ran the ad on herself under the ex-wife's name in order to get her in trouble for the whole thing. So that brings me into this just pile of questions where, okay, what about this guy that answered the ad? I mean, I'll grant he's probably a sick dude. But if he's answering an ad in good faith to engage in a rape fantasy scenario with someone a consenting adult who wants to engage in that fantasy scenario, and that's how he understands it, is he actually guilty of anything? And even more confusing, if it were actually the case that the ex-wife that was accused of running the ad, who actually didn't run the ad, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, that person X runs the ad for consensual rape play, we'll call it, with person Y, without person Y's knowledge, and the rapist answers the ad, rapes person Y, who doesn't know that there was an ad. Is the rapist actually a rapist? Or is he someone who was operating in good faith in the belief that he had just engaged in a consensual sex fantasy with the person that he hooked up with, that he raped? See, and that convoluted scenario actually opens up the possibility of a rape victim without a rapist. Or does one argue in that case that the person who physically committed the assault is not the rapist, in the same way that the gun is not the murderer? And you go back to the person who ran the ad fallaciously, and that's the actual rapist. Does the physical person who committed the act, are they also culpable? Even given that they were acting in good faith, given the ad, operating under the impression that they were engaging in a consensual rape fantasy scenario, is he culpable of a crime? Because clearly there is a victim here to whom harm has been done. That is crime. So that's convoluted, twisted shit. It is. Now let's talk about some other convoluted, twisted shit. Milo Yiannopoulos. Here we go. Logical fallacy of false attribution. Earlier this week, well, actually goes back to Friday before this past Friday. Apparently there was a leak ahead of time on 4chan that the bulletin went out. We are going to firebomb Milo Yiannopoulos. Maybe that's not the right choice of words, because I'm not talking about when the left shut him down at Berkeley by setting the college on fire. I'm talking about a metaphoric firebomb in this case. So last week, the media decided to go full tilt and take out Milo. So how'd they do this? They dug up an old podcast of Milo talking about his early sexual experiences. I'm not going to go into them in detail, but the basics are this. Milo Yiannopoulos was sexually molested somewhere between the ages of, from the ages of 13 to 16. When he talked about that molestation, he spoke about it not in totally damning terms. He actually spoke pretty affectionately about the men who molested him. He talked about it like it was a loving relationship, and he talked about some other stuff. But here's the thing: at no point did Milo ever say anything about him having sex with a younger boy. So, at the very worst, he defended pederasty only in his own case, in his peculiar circumstance. And somehow the media managed to turn that from Milo was sexually assaulted as a child, as it filtered its way into the headlines. It went from Milo was sexually assaulted to Milo's a pedophile. Now, I'm sorry. Is that... So Lena Dunham's a rapist then, because she claimed that somebody raped her. Yeah, I mean, if you can argue that Milo Yiannopoulos, because he was sexually assaulted as a child, is a pedophile, not that he has become a pedophile and it began with his, but no. There's no evidence, there's no claim, there's nothing to suggest that Milo actually assaulted a child at any point. It went from Milo was raped as a child to Milo's a pedophile, and there's nothing in between. That's like opening your argument with the World Trade Towers were entirely staffed by terrorists. That is the argument that has been made against Milo in that case. It's ludicrous. Hey, we have another viewer. Hello, new viewer. Join us in the chat over here and ask questions. We're talking about Milo Yiannopoulos and Pewdiepie a little bit. So, also earlier today, Pewdiepie, or not today, I'm sorry, earlier this week, Pewdiepie got, quote, outed as a Nazi. He's not a Nazi. It's ludicrous. Ludicrous. You know what Pewdiepie is? He's the single most successful and profitable, the biggest guy on YouTube. And he does silly shit. He's a video gamer. He does cheap jokes and gimmicks and gags. He's a funny guy. But when you look at what his channel is, the truth of the matter is he's a kind of funny guy who works his ass off to develop content and has been since the beginning. He's one of the originals. One silly little joke on a channel, and all of a sudden he's being attacked as, oh my God, this guy's a Nazi because he's blonde, because he's from a Germanic background, because where's guys, listen, lefties, listen. This shit is not complicated. We beat the Nazis. The Nazis are not suddenly in power somewhere. They don't have a substantial movement or substantial influence anywhere at all. And point of fact, National Socialism belongs to the left. It's socialism. Socialism belongs to the left. Fascism belongs to you. It belongs to the left, people. Okay? All you Antifa nutburgers, you are actually fascists. If you don't believe that statement, you don't understand what fascism is. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means, right? So knock it off. Now, we're short tonight. We're a little short-staffed tonight. So my guy that usually does the White Hats Matter segment is not here. So let me see if I can find us. Nope. It's 20 minutes after 8, and guys, I hate to say it, but I'm just out. I'm done. So y'all have a good night, and I will see you next week. And until then, if you build a man of fire, he'll be warm for the evening. But if you light a man on fire, he'll be warm for the rest of his life. Good night.